we've talked about the left and the right sides of the body, and what we do when we don't want to deal with something is we actually either push it down or push it back into the body.
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Joining us today is a pioneering intuitive healer and the best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body. She has dedicated over 2 decades to helping individuals unlock the secrets of their body's wisdom, facilitating profound healing on physical, emotional, and energetic levels. Through her transformative teachings and intuitive insights, she empowers people to reconnect with their inner guidance, fostering self-healing and personal transformation. Her work has touched countless lives, offering tools and practices that bridges the gap between mind, body, and spirit. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming the intuitive healer and the best-selling author, Segal.
Thank you so much, Joanne. So good to be here with you.
Thank you so much for coming. The main focus of your work, your book is about the secret language of the body. So, can you talk to us about that? Like, how does it show us? How is our body communicating with us?
Well, I think the easiest way for people to recognize that their body's communicating is when they feel pain or they feel depressed or they feel anxious or they feel stuck or they feel afraid or overwhelmed inside their bodies. And so these are the obvious kind of ways that I don't feel comfortable inside my body. But at the same time, it can also be that they feel alive and energized and joyful. And it's like there's a sense of, I feel really, really good. And ideally, people have more of the good than the other one. But essentially, we recognize the language of the body from that perspective. And the reason I said secret essentially is because there are parts of this language that we don't usually connect with because we just don't know. And so we don't realize that, for instance, we have the left side of the body actually tells us this incredible story. And the left side of the body is all about how we experience life internally. So how we listen to our body's cues in terms of, when do I rest? When do I work? When do I do things? When for others, when do I give back to myself? We don't realize this is the part of us that is also compassionate or has the capacity to be compassionate to ourselves just as much as to other people, that it's about self-nourishment, self-love, whereas and it is feminine in relation to also the fact that how we've seen the people in our lives who are feminine behave, and the impact they've had on our lives actually affect our health, especially when this was early on. So let's say if I am a young girl and I have a mother who's very, who ignores me, who's aggressive, who's strict, who doesn't give me time of day or listen to me, then there is a high possibility I'm going to reject my own femininity, and I might end up having problems with my reproductive system. I might have problems with iron and blood. I may have problems with my heart or my breasts or my lungs. So this is what I mean, and for a young man that can, and this can show up way, way later on as well. in life, but this is where it starts. And for young men, it could be prostate. I have seen and found connected pieces with men who have prostate to, often really challenging experiences and scenarios in their teenage years when they were 13, 14, 15. And often there was a connection with the mother in some ways. There was a rejection, or the father, but often the mother, where there was some kind of deep, deep rejection of, of this boy. And it could show up when the person is 60. So we don't realize how the seeds actually get planted in terms of health. And when we're looking at the right side of the body and what it reveals to us, where the right side, we have the liver. And even in Chinese medicine, we know the liver is more of a masculine kind of organ, masculine type of energy. And even by what it does, by what it logically does inside the body, by cleansing and detoxing the body and so on. And the liver, again, often actually holds our experiences, liver and gallbladder in particular, with men who are very, very important to us as we're growing up. In particular, our father or father figure, or uncle, grandfather, teacher, somebody who was prominent in our lives and had a huge impact. And it pretty much, in the thousands of people that I've worked with, especially with men on this, every man that I've worked with who has had liver or gallbladder issues had felt either rejection by their father or had a very conflicting, painful relationship with their father. And this is the same with women as well, and ended up with gallbladder stones or having their gallbladder out because they got to a place of actually being enraged with what happened when they were younger with their father, but suppressing it, pushing it down, and kind of pretending that everything's fine, or not communicating with that masculine person at all. So essentially, this secret language is understanding the wisdom that the body naturally holds and how we can learn about it so we can start to get access into it so that we can heal ourselves.
Wow. I mean, that's fascinating. But how does this trauma, fears, anxiety, depression then translate into physical illness or pain in our body that we can actually feel it or it hurts?
It's a great question. And this can at times depends on the person's body. So to really understand this, actually, we need to understand subtle bodies. So we need to understand that we have what we call a soul, something that people are familiar with that word. And the soul in itself holds our unique self. And it holds our feelings, our desires, what I love and like, and what I don't like and don't love. And the soul within itself holds this emotional body. And this emotional body has a huge impact on our nervous system, right? So depends on how we experience our emotions. We either have a very calm expression of ourselves, or we suppress and numb everything. And because we suppress and push away and numb, the nervous system, which is a communication system inside of the body, gets blocked. And when something doesn't flow inside your body and gets blocked, you feel bad, you feel numb, you feel disconnected, you feel disassociated from yourself and from your body. You do not know who you are. And so we have this. this emotional kind of body that's part of our soul and is in our aura. And these people have seen colors change by, through photos and, that they've taken of aura photos and so on, which actually means that our emotions are fluctuating and changing. Now, our emotions also are energy, and they move things inside the body. So that so if we have a really dense negative emotion, that emotion will start, let's say, its journey through the blood and the water. So we have, the circulatory system, we have the lymphatic system, and everybody's talked about how you are, it depends who you listen to, between 70 and 90% of water inside. And this watery substance, we'll call it, is actually full of consciousness. It's alive. And so when we put in this negative, dense, hateful, I hate myself, I hate others, I hate life, depressed substance, by thinking this and feeling it through into our body, it's actually going to, through the circulatory and lymphatic system, it's going to flow, right? It's going to move, and it'll move, it might start, from, let's say it starts in the heart, and it starts to move through the heart. And so the heart that was open potentially is now becoming a little bit turned inside. So let's say it's day one. And then this energy moves, and it moves into the digestive system, let's say. And now the digestive system that was healthy and was digesting food becomes weakened. And we are not really digesting food or life experiences anymore. And then it keeps moving with that memory of experience. And the part of the subtle body that carries memories called etheric body. And this etheric body is like the copy of the physical body, but it is the body of chi. It's the body of energy, vitality. And it moves the blood, actually. It moves things inside the body, but it also is the copy of the body and holds it. So very often what actually happens is that we have these thoughts and feelings, and that gets imprinted into the memory body, which is the etheric body. And then the etheric body will send that particular energy into the organs of the physical body. So when people talk about cellular memory is there based on the etheric memory. So the etheric body actually is the body that holds the memory and then sends it into the cell. And the way we know this is because if I cut, somebody's leg off, let's say, and now they don't have cells in that part of the body, but yet they, so many people still say that they experience pain in the part of their body that they don't have. It's illogical then to say that it's just the physical that has this memory. So there must be something that is left of it, and this is the etheric, which is the copy that is left. But the astral body, which is the body of emotion, is also the body of sensation. It's part of the souls. And this body of sensation has the sensation of pleasure and joy, but also the sensation of pain. And this is how, in a very, very basic way, this is how it works in terms of these experiences that we have affect, if it's not a very important experience, it will affect more of our astral body. And we'll have, we might have an argument with somebody, and then we reflect on it, maybe we learn something from it, we get over it, it doesn't become a memory. But if it is in that sense of something that's hurting us, but if it is traumatic and we've gone, I don't know how to deal with it, I'm going to push this back into somewhere, into myself, I'm not going to deal with this because I don't know how to. At that point, it becomes this, it goes into memory that now affects negatively affects the physical body. But because the physical body is so resilient, it can take years and years and years for this to really, become physical and affect you in a physical way.
Wow. I mean, that is not basic at all, you know. That is like advanced level. But is that why chronic pain or illness often start in one area but show up elsewhere in the body? Let's say, maybe I feel pain in my left leg, but actually it's not a problem with the left leg, but something else is causing that. Is that why? Because you mentioned about, energy moves, right? The system and everything, the nervous system, blood, and is that the reason why it shows up somewhere else?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. This is an easy to show with an example. So
Yep.
many years ago, I had this young girl she was 25 at one of my workshops, and she was diagnosed with spinal cancer, and she was, really, really trying to work directly with the spine. And the issue of going straight to the spine is that it's in the back of the body. And so we've talked about the left and the right sides of the body. And what we do when we don't want to deal with something is we actually either push it down or push it back into the body. And because we, again, don't know what to do, push it back or push it down. And so she pushed things back into her body, so it went into her spine. And when somebody's that young and it actually appears in this way, I know for a fact that this is connected to their childhood. Like it just is. And when it's connected to their childhood, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's connected to their spine. We need to figure it out, especially seeing where it is in the spine. And for her, it was in her more upper back. So I thought this was really interesting. And the first thing that I asked her, it was on the right side. The first thing I asked her was, so tell me about how you grew up and your relationship with your father. And she choked up immediately. And I went, wow, okay, this is already telling me a story. And she said to me, well, actually, it is a difficult relationship with my father. And I do have to tell you something. I'm going to have to leave this workshop earlier. And I said to her, really? So earlier, meaning like you're here for 3 days? How early? And she said, well, I can only stay 2 days and a little bit because my father drove me here because, I'm having issues driving. But she was already married. She just got married. And he's waiting for me, and he doesn't want to drive when the workshop is finishing. He's said that he's had enough. So I was like, wow. So his daughter is 25 and dying from cancer of the spine, and she's going to a workshop that might help her, and he's controlling the situation and saying it's about me. So I went, wow. So as you grew up with your dad, was it ever about you? Was it always this control about him and what he wanted? And straight away that she had tears. And she said, well, yeah, it was always about my dad. And I went, so the issue, like you're working on your spine, I suggest you stop. I suggest that you start to work on communication with your father and on your inner child, which is, the part of you that got stuck and is actually sick, and also on your boundaries. You can stand up for yourself and say no, because working and doing processes and visualizations on the spine but not doing this first is actually useless, because it's like you're working on the end result as opposed to on what is this really, really about. And this has happened with so many people because people don't often, when we have this little knock on the door, this is where something started, we have a tendency to ignore. as opposed to going, hold on a sec, when something is there, has been there for a while, and how do we know it's been there for a while? Because if it's become a really serious condition, then it's not, it's not from the last few days, right? So it's like we need to search and understand it, and we need to understand timelines around it, and where is it likely to have started and when, and then we need to start to work on what started to cause it. But now I do want to put in a little thing here where what people then, when they hear this, what they tend to do is they go, well, I want to go to the root cause of something. And it's like, this word has been used for me in the healing world in a way that is a little bit, makes me very nervous, because the idea of saying, if I just get to the root cause, I can change everything, is not quite how it works. It's not that, like, if we put cards, right, and we created a house of cards and we went, if I just take this out and this out, the whole house of cards falls. It maybe does with the cards, but it doesn't with the body. That's not how this works. So what the body is, what happens is that as soon as the seed has been planted of something, let's say it's of rejection. As soon as that seed is planted, doesn't mean you actually have the sickness, but what happens is that you now process information and how you view life from that perspective of being rejected, let's say. And so now you walk around in life and you're always looking for those who are going to hurt or reject you. And I'll give another example where I actually had somebody who was interviewing me and we were talking about this. And he said, look, I do relate to you because I've had, in my life, I had to deal with an anger issue. And I didn't really know where the anger issue came from for a long, long time. So I would just explode. But it wasn't from what people did. And he said that he ended up finding out that the explosions actually happened from when he was 3 years old. His father literally physically lost him, and somebody else had him for 1 week. And he said that there was such sense of abandonment, but he doesn't remember this, right? But there was in this child that got stored there, that whenever he was around somebody and he even had a whiff of the fact that they would reject or abandon him, he would start screaming and shouting, and they would stop. Like they wouldn't say, I'm going to reject you. They might still do it, and they might do it even more, but they would, in that moment where he would go into absolute fear of this 3-year-old self, they would, essentially stop. But what I said to him is that, okay, hold on a sec. So it started at 3, but when did it actually become bigger? When did you really start remembering, noticing yourself do that? And it became part of, real part of your life. He said, when I was a teenager. And so if we only worked on the 3-year-old self, but not on the teenage self, and then not on his 20-something-year-old self when he met his partner, and not on the, coming to those several important points, so not one point, but several, then he would go, well, this doesn't work. This root cause way, it doesn't work, because look, we found it. It's 3. But from 3, it grew, right? It didn't just stay at the 3-year-old level and then him, going, well, I just act like I'm a 3-year-old. It also grew into him as a teenage self, which the anger was, coming through it in a different way. It didn't come through my parents rejecting me. It might have come through my girlfriend rejecting me, or my friend, or my teacher. And this is the thing that people don't realize when they're doing this. Like, let's go back to where it started, is that it's where it started potentially, but also what were the other really powerful moments or timelines where that thing became bigger. And we need to look at those as well.
Yeah, because often, we thought we just have to find a root cause and work on the root cause because that's where everything started, like you said. Then, we will heal
Yeah.
magically. And you also said that there's no overnight healing, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's unsafe. Some of the healing approaches out there are unsafe because they promise fast result like overnight healing. So what makes those approaches harmful first? And what's your approach like? What makes it so different?
Well, I just feel like when people don't understand the real foundation of healing, so they don't understand those subtle bodies that we talked about, and that in particular with the astral body that is holding the emotional part of the body. So for us to be healthy, let me say it in this way, we need to have a clear ability to think, a clear ability to feel, and then to act, right? And these are connected. We think in our mind, in our kind of chest is where we feel, and around our hip area and legs, we take action, we move. And what happens when, so these parts need to be aligned, thinking, feeling, and will. But what happens is that when somebody, for instance, let's say I'm not well and I'm tired, and my thinking is not really strong, which the thinking in myself actually holds my sense of I am, my sense of self. When this becomes weakened, I can be very easily affected by others. And so let's say I am, doing a process, or even by myself, I'm doing a process, and you know, it is a forceful process where, I'm being pushed to breathe intensely, to feel things intensely, where my nervous system, as well as my sense of self, cannot actually handle this much intensity, right? I have not become that strong in myself, and it is traumatic. So what can happen is that that particular emotion that I don't know how to hold or deal with takes over my thinking and takes over my will. And when it does that, I become full of anxiety and potentially even depression, because my sense of self that was meant to hold it cannot hold it. So it's like then the emotional part of me has become, and the negative emotional part of me, because it's too big for me to handle, it's become so big, it's taken over my whole system. And and usually this has happened because something was done too fast, in a too intense, harsh way, without the understanding of what I'm talking about. And also the fact that this emotional body is very sensitive, and it's quite easy to create holes in it, to freeze it, to tear it up. Like there's all sorts of things. If you do them, the end result, for instance, if you start tearing the emotional body one time after another, you can get autoimmune disease. If you end up doing, because you'll actually start attacking yourself, it'll be like scars all over, as an or a nervous system disorder. Or if you start to numb, and your intention with whatever you do is to get rid of the emotion and not to feel what it's about as soon as possible, then again you will numb it. And it's very easy. You can numb it through tapping on certain points. You can numb it if that's your intention, to get rid of it, as opposed to feel it and understand it, which is a very different intention. So what I've seen with that, when you just want to get rid of it, or you just want to numb it, or you just want to finish it, and there's all sorts of different techniques for these types of things. What I've seen is major digestive system disorder, because you're not processing. Your digestive system is there to process your emotional experiences. It's in the part of the body where you are meant to work on emotions. So, like, your head is thinking, you're meant to work on your thinking part, up to your heart. And then the heart and the digestive system is all emotional. And then, like I said, from the hip area on, it's about the will more. It's about, what am I going to do? And so when you don't realize, it is so easy to allow emotional parts of us that are very strong and, let's say, pushed away in the shadow and to have a lot of power, for them to take over our whole system and make us feel useless, depressed, angry, lost, confused, fearful most of the time. And that is the huge, huge danger that I've seen, where people, want to do things faster and they don't come back into the body. And I like examples because I found them powerful. So even in my own journey, obviously I learned this through having my own experiences. I had a lady, and this really stuck with me, where she had arthritis. She had no energy, part of so chronic fatigue. At times, she had fibromyalgia, and she also had 5 children, and she was in pain a lot of the time. And so she came to me for a healing session, and energetically, at that time, I was doing a lot of energy work. So I literally took the pain out, and I, you know, kind of rebalanced her whole body. And because she was quite sensitive as a person, it impacted her, where she walked in with a lot of pain and she walked out without any pain. And what I said to her is this: look, as much as I'm excited for you to have that experience, I don't feel like you have received the wisdom of what this has been about. And in my experience, is if I do the work, yes, I can release pain for you, and I can do all sorts of amazing things, but it will not hold unless you start to hold it by changing what caused it in the first place and understanding it. And she didn't really get what I was talking about, because in her mind, she went, oh, this is magical. And if anything happens to me, I know who to go to. That's how she took it. Over the next several months, I heard what she was doing. So this lasted for 6 months, I'm going to say. So for years, I'm going to say for several years, something like 10 years, she didn't do anything. Her husband was in charge of everything. She found it hard to get up in the morning. All of a sudden, she comes home with all this energy, because one of the things that I understand that very few people do is that in the etheric body, there is, for some people, depends on how you grew up, there could be a reservoir of this etheric energy, and it can be unlocked, and you can feel extremely energized when that occurs, even if you're quite sick, if somebody understands how to do that. So we unlocked this for her, and she went, oh my God, but I knew it was temporary. And I kept saying, so she started all of a sudden being this superwoman mother, and she started doing things nonstop for her children, not resting at all, not honoring her body, not listening to her body. She started a business, and she was working on an international business, and she was working on this business in the middle of the night. So she wasn't sleeping, because she all of a sudden had all this access to energy. And in the morning and during the day, she was looking after her children and doing stuff with them. And at night, she was doing this business. And I spoke to her several times about this. And I said to her, look, this is not magical. And if you keep doing this, you're going to end up worse off than when you started. Like, you literally will. And you're going to think that you're going to come to me with and that I have some magic wand to make it the same. And it's not going to happen like this. But she just wouldn't listen. It's like, because she had so many years of, feeling bad and sick, it was like, I've got to go, I've got to go, I've got to go 100 miles an hour. And so, of course, eventually what I predicted, which was super obvious, occurred, which was, she crashed. She absolutely crashed. And of course, she ran back to me. And I said to her, well, this is not how it works. Like, that's, this is not how this is going to work. And I actually said to her, I'm going to refuse to see you one on one unless you do my courses, because you have to learn how to do this, and you have to understand the mechanics, the mechanism of it. And then I can help you, whilst you are thinking that you have no understanding and I'm some magic wand for you. We're going to go back to the same, but also you don't have the reservoir of, well, she didn't understand that, but it was like, you don't have the reservoir of etheric energy anymore. So we were not going to have the same experience of vitality and healing as we did the first time. And so, yeah, she did the course, and then she started to slowly improve and understand that it's not about a quick fix. It's about a foundational healing that is a step-by-step experience that makes you feel like you are in charge and you have the tools, and you don't have to force or rush anything. You just need to work with the wisdom of your body and the timing of it, because the timing of it is very important. It only gives you the insights when you are ready for them.
Thanks for these examples. It's so helpful in helping us to understand how does it work, in real life, in real people. So now we know that we cannot rush healing. It doesn't happen overnight. No one has a magic wand, not even you. So it happens in stages, and that's your course, I believe. That is your work, right? Healing happens in stages. So can you quickly guide us through those key stages? And because I just want my listeners to know where they are, in terms of their healing journey. Because someone might just be getting started and they thought it gonna, have fast result, or someone like me who is, I don't even know where I am, in the healing journey. So can you guide us through those like key stages so we know where we are and what to work on?
Yeah. So I'm actually writing a book on it at the moment so that it can help people in the future to understand. And I personally have identified 8 very specific stages that relate to everybody. And then, of course, there's refined stages that might happen specifically because you've done a lot of work on yourself. But essentially, we start with stage 1, which is stuckness. This is when people are stuck in suffering and they cannot see past it. They almost need to be shaken out of it, and they are looking for this magic wand, like this lady, that they're looking for somebody to fix it for them. They do not see how their own involvement needs to be in it. And in this stage, the most important thing is not healing, but the most important thing is to get to being teachable, to being open-minded, to going, what are the possibilities that I don't know about that could help me? And from there, if we can get to that place, we then move to stage 2, where we are still looking for somebody to do that, but we understand that there are possibilities, and the idea of that stage, because it has different parts to it, but the idea is to get through the understanding. Often in that stage, people are quite controlling because they're fearful, and so they'll go to healer and they'll tell them what is okay and what's not okay and what they want to do, as opposed to actually being open, because there's still a lot of fear about, what am I going to find out if I actually go within myself. And so, as we start to move from beginning of stage 2 to kind of the end of stage 2, we start to realize that somehow I'm involved in my own healing journey, and somehow there is I need to start to participate. I must start to participate in my journey, which moves us to stage 3 of the journey, which is I need to take responsibility. And in taking responsibility, I might start with the basics of learning what is held in my body, and that I can still go to a healer or a practitioner, but not one who wants to fix me without me participating, but the one who understands that chaos is part of transformation, and that I'm going to have all sorts of emotions and experiences that I don't understand. And I need some kind of guidance to create a map for myself, or, a way forward. And it'll be somebody who now starts to nurture and understand the timing. And so I need teachers or a guide that will move me in a direction of honoring my own body, but at the same time realizing that I can connect. I'm the only one who has lived my life and has memories and experiences and challenges that I need to work with. And so from here, we actually start to become quite empowered. So we start to move into stage 4. And stage 4 of healing is actually realizing and starting to understand more about emotions, but in particular, emotions from a place of how they structure, let's say the structure of emotions. So the structure of emotions, what it means is that the emotion in itself actually doesn't start from an emotion. It starts from a perspective and belief systems that create a particular emotional experience that are always connected to other experiences that we've spoken about, and that this can potentially be connected to what we call an archetype. So we might call something an archetype that is like a child. So all of us have gone through childhood. And even though we didn't have the same experiences, we had similar experiences of feeling unsafe, needing protection, needing encouragement. And this archetype of the child feeling good enough or not good enough, this archetype of the child will now connect to you as you grow at all the different stages of your life. And it will either go, let's be teachable and creative, or it will go, I'm going to keep you blocked and stuck and depressed and stuck in the past. And so we start to, in this stage 4, recognize that there is wisdom and there is possibility, and and that there's parts of us that actually got stuck behind. And then as we enter into stage 5, we work, and in all of these stages, we work on our sense of self and strengthening it. And in stage 5, we start to go, I am strong enough now to actually go on this journey of understanding various parts of myself, especially the parts that got stuck in the shadow or in trauma. And I'm going to start to slowly meet those parts. And so, what that does also is, as we gain wisdom, our nervous system becomes more and more flexible. And when the nervous system becomes internally flexible, and so does your spine, you start to move into stage 6, which is preparation for a transformation. And so here, it can actually seem quite chaotic, and it can seem like depends on how you went through the other stages and whether you skipped steps or not in your learning of wisdom and connecting to different parts of your storyline. And obviously, I am only giving a very short explanation of this. You either created, through this slowing down, more or less flexibility. And so as you move to stage 6, you'll start to feel like things start to, it's a bit uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's almost like just before you have a release and sneeze, that feeling of like the energy is just coming. And so people might actually re-experience pain that they thought was suppressed for a short period of time, or they might have a cold because the body's going, I need to clean, like, okay, now you've come to a stage of cleansing physically out the toxins that are in your body. Like, how do you want me to remove them? Or somebody might even start like hiccuping, or laughing. Yeah, that's the more positive. Oh, some people have, as they keep going through the journey, they just go, oh my God, I feel some tension, but it's actually pleasurable. It's almost like I feel it like an orgasmic experience, right? Like I'm a positive, pleasurable release through my body. So it depends on what it is and how you've done it, but there will be this, before the release, this sense of like pressure building, or something coming out that's a little bit uncomfortable. And then in stage 7 is when you actually have this release. You actually experience it, and it could be, again, like I said, a fever going really high and cleansing and transforming things. And if you are still coming from a fearful perspective, you'll go, I need to take something to bring the fever down. But if you understand that, this is happening because it's part of my healing journey, you'll go, okay, fever is part of this. I'm just gonna rest and drink warm water, or and allow my body to cleanse. Or I might take some herbs, or I might take some homeopathics, but it's going to be very, very gentle as a release, as an experience and a support for myself. Or it could become like there's a big loss that happens in your life, or a big transformation in that way, and you realize something had to, it was moving towards a completion, and now there is a completion, so you can start a new life in a new way. And again, depending on the wisdom you gathered in the other stages, to whether you go back into the place of victimhood, or you go, hey, what do I learn from this? And how do I grow from this experience? And then the last stage, stage 8, that is again this general stage of healing, is where you start to feel this lightness and expansion, and inner expansion, where it's like there's new possibilities. And at this point, you might go, you know what, I'm going to start to create themes, because I'm going to I am consciously going on this journey, and I'm going to go and explore something in my ancestry or ancestral trauma to release it. Or I might look at my karma and destiny, or I might look at, my relationships, or I might look at a particular or spirituality, because now I'm more focused, and I'm looking at cycles to go through to really hone in on how I want to be as a human being, right? How I want to deepen and become a more wiser, stronger, enriched human.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing those stages and explaining what it means. Since and I don't want to overwhelm my listeners with so much information. I think it's enough for them today.
Yeah.
So the last thing is, like, before we wrap things up, now we know that we have the ability to heal ourselves. And what is one simple practice can our listener start using right now to activate their bodies or our body's natural healing ability? Like, knowing what we know now, after everything you have shared, what is one simple practice that we can start implementing everything we have learned today?
So what a really simple practice is actually placing your hands on the part of your body where you feel pain or stuckness, or you feel, like I just don't feel good there. The energy is not moving there. And getting to know this part. And you might start by exploring, let me feel the sensations, because that's the easiest way to kind of explore what are the sensations that I'm feeling? What are they about? And then as you become conscious of the sensation, it's going underneath the sensation. If there was a thought pattern, if there was a belief, or several, let's start with one, what is the belief of this part of my body? What am I, what is it that I'm storing or believing? And so maybe it's your throat that you're working on, and you go, I feel so uncomfortable and stuck because there is somebody I need to communicate with, but I'm really, really afraid of communicating with them. And then you might go further and you might go, well, why am I afraid of communicating with them? Oh, because I'm afraid of being rejected. And you might go, okay, is there any other part of my body that is connected to rejection? And another part might show up, and you move your hands there, knowing you'll come back to the throat. And you would go, okay, let's say I put my hands on my liver and I go, wow, I feel rejection here. And again, let me ask myself, what else do I feel here? And it might be this sense of like, I have been stopped, I cannot move forward. And maybe for one day that's enough, and the next day you come back and you do the same, and you go and you write all of this down. It's really, really important that you journal. And then in the next day you go, okay, now I'm a little bit stronger, and I want to go a little deeper. And I might ask, well, who rejected me, or who was I angry with, um, or afraid of, around my liver. And again, you might have some basic knowledge, ideally, of this is masculine, and you go, maybe there's a part of me that's really, really angry with my dad, and or some person that, maybe it's my boss, and I need to find a way. If they're alive, maybe I need to find a way to communicate with them. But I might not jump at that. I might write down ideas of how to communicate with them first. Before I do that, I need to release the charge or whatever is stuck. Like, why am I so angry? And maybe I realized that when I was 10, I took what my dad did in a way as a 10-year-old, like, you rejected me. But maybe my dad was just busy at that time. And, or maybe he was, going through his own struggle at the time. And so I start to expand my perspective. And as you expand your perspective, there's a letting go that happens. And so the first step is really that people need to do is slow down and get to know your body by placing your hands on the different parts and asking questions about thinking, what are the beliefs, what are the emotions, and what are the experiences? And in the experiences, what is the perspective that I took? And is this a perspective that is going to keep me stuck? Or is this a perspective that can lead me to health and change and new possibilities? And that's kind of how our soul and our body work together.
Yeah, I like that. I like that question. What is the perspective that I took that kept me stuck? I think that's such a powerful question to ask. You know, can just take any experience that you
Mm.
had in the past and ask yourself that question. So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, for today, I mean, this is really amazing and transformational, and I would love to dive deep into more of what you do. So tell my people. I'm sure my people are also interested now to learn more. So tell my people where they can find more about what you do, or if they want to have one-on-one coaching, or do you also offer like group coaching, healing session? Because I think a lot of people, their perception is that or even a lot of healers told me this, like they prefer one-on-one because healing is very personal. That's what they always say.
So I did thousands and thousands of sessions one on one originally. Obviously, you need to do that to understand what you're doing. And then through these thousands of sessions, I also started doing workshops. And what I found was that the idea of the workshop was that people actually learned as many skills as possible to create a daily practice, essentially, or to create a practice, even if it's not daily, and to start to work on themselves and actually know what to do. Because what if I used to have people who called me at 11 o'clock at night until I said no, that's not okay. And they was like, this is an emergency. But what if there was an emergency, essentially, and you were the only one who could help yourself with this emergency? And so essentially, what I do is I have different courses for different people wherever they're at. So if somebody's at the beginning of the beginning, I have my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, and a course that comes with it. And the easiest way to find it is to go to my website, which is inasegal.com/secret. I've created a masterclass, and there's about 3 hours of this intense understanding of going through all the body parts and how they connect and what is the wisdom. And then how do you wake your body up to really receive this wisdom? And then I actually guide you through a process. And this is for free. So lots to explore. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter, because that's where you're going to get to know when there's free events and different events and reminders and inspiration.
Thank you so much again. Yes, I'll put all your links in the show note below so people can go and visit the show note and learn more about your work and sign up for your masterclass. I will be doing that, guys. So make sure you sign up for the masterclass because I'm gonna be doing it. Now go follow Ina on Instagram as well. Thank her for coming to our show today. If you have any questions, you can send us a DM or you comment below if you're watching this. If you know anyone who could benefit from this conversation, share with them, because healing is a collective effort. So thank you so much again for coming and for listening. I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Bye. Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joyan podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag Find Joy Joyan _podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.